Ma'am, nowadays the position of working professional women is very different what it used to be 30 years ago.
That's true, and I would add that it is improved a lot.
So I want to ask to you about alternate dispute resolution methods and how are they different from court proceedings.
See, in the very name of ADR, you have an alternative dispute resolution. Yeah, catch.
But is the order of the mediation binding? Like the court order is binding on the parties, they have to follow it. So on an average, how long does a court proceedings go if we compare it to an arbitration?
See, the last amendment in 2019 brought in something called Section 29A.
Hello, today I have with me Advocate Mrs. Aba Malhotra. She is a mediator with Samadhan. She is a senior panel counsel with Union of India and an arbitrator with DIAC. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
How long have you been practicing law?
This November it would be 30 years. I enrolled in 94, we are in 24, so you do the maths.
30 years.
30 years.
That's a lot of time.
Yes, it has indeed been a long journey. And as all journeys do, there have been potholes on the way, but I enjoyed the ride.
Ma'am, nowadays the position of working professional women is very different what it used to be 30 years ago.
That's true. That's true. And I would add that it is improved a lot. When I joined in 94, there were a handful of women lawyers, very few. And we were viewed with skepticism, both professionally and personally. Of course, my immediate family was rock solid behind me, but there was skepticism. And as a woman, you had to prove your worth by giving double. You had to work twice as hard as the men to prove you were an equal. And you had to do twice as much as housework as a homemaker, as they call them today, to prove that you are no less because you're a working woman. So that was then. Today things have changed. Today you're openly welcomed in the profession. You're openly welcomed in the households which accept working women. There are some households that don't, but yes, you're welcomed. And you don't have to push as hard as you used to 30 years ago. So things have changed. Things change with every generation. What our grandmothers went through, then our mothers went through was an improvement. Then what we went through was an improvement from what our mothers went through. And I'm sure what our daughters and daughters-in-law will go through would be better than what we've been through. So that's how life is.
So what do you like about law as a career?
See, law for me was an inspiration because I watched it very closely. I was visiting the High Court as a child because my father was in the profession. And he played a very successful innings with a lot of grace and elan, I must say. So he was quite an inspiration. Though he was the one who tried to show me the mirror and say, look, this is how the real world is. It's not all hunky-dory for women, especially out there. So you look for other options. But being his daughter, I was adamant that I'll prove my worth here. So that's how it is. It was my father who inspired me to come to the profession.
So you are an arbitrator and a mediator also.
Yes.
So I want to ask to you about alternate dispute resolution methods and how are they different from court proceedings?
See, in the very name of ADR, you have an alternative dispute resolution. So this is an alternative to the court. Now, courts are saturated. They are in fact bursting at seams with the workload. There's a lot of pendency. I don't know if you're aware or not, we have close to more than 5 crore cases pending as of today. Where do people with disputes go? It is in human nature to interact, and it is in the nature of interaction that conflicts arise. And every time a conflict arises at home, at the workplace, between the governments, between the corporates, they need a resolution to it. So the earlier paradigm was going to the courts. Now these alternative dispute resolution methods have taken precedence, because there are some very clear advantages of going for ADR methods like mediation and arbitration. Arbitration is more like a court procedure, less formality, less of CPC and Evidence Act, and you cut down all the brass tacks, come down to the framing of issues, going for your evidence, and then the award.
Okay.
Thereafter, it's up to the parties whether they want to drag it up in appeals or whatever. But otherwise, it's a very cut short method. So it is time effective. It may or may not be cost effective, because with the amendment of the Arbitration Act, we have something called the fourth schedule, which stipulates your fee. But some arbitrators do charge even beyond that fee. So for those kind of arbitrations, it may not be cost effective, but more or less it's cost effective. And mediation is out and out. In fact, to alternative, I would say it's the appropriate dispute resolution method, because very cost effective, very time effective, efficient in that way. Plus, what it does is it puts the parties in the driver's seat rather than the lawyers being in the driver's seat. Even in arbitration, the lawyers will remain in the driver's seat, because it's legal at the end of the day. Legal in the sense of it has its legalities. But in mediation, the parties are called for and the issues are resolved in a very human manner. Of course, you need to be trained, you have to undergo training for it. But they are catching on. They are catching on.
But is the order of the mediation binding? Like the court order is binding on the parties, they have to follow it. But I have studied that mediation order is not binding.
No, I disagree to that. For example, we have Samadhan, where I am working as a mediator. This is a mediation center which is court annexed. So we have a lot of court referred matters as well as pre-litigation matters. Parties are advised by their own lawyers that you can sort it out in litigation. Now there are two things. One is the pre-litigation. Those agreements work like any other agreement. These pre-litigation means you've not yet gone to the court. The other court-referred mediation is when there is a dispute, some statutes have it as a mandate that you please refer them for mediation. You have it in CPC, you have it in the Commercial Courts Act. So various acts say that you go for mediation. Now when you are referred to mediation, what happens is, supposing there are two things that can happen. Either the mediation fails or it is successful. If it is successful and you have an agreement, that is taken back to the court. That is taken back to the court and it is given the stamping of the court, it is given the court's approval, and then it becomes final. So it works as good as a decree of the court. In fact, it is better. Why? Because in a typical civil suit, the plaintiff will be paying certain amount of court fee. It may be a large sum of money. If it is resolved through mediation, that court fee will be refunded to that plaintiff. So it is, he wins in any case. He gets out of that mess as well as he's refunded the court fee. And it has the approval of the stamping of the court, in the sense of the approval of the court. So if you try to violate the terms of an agreement reached from mediation, you're as much in contempt of the court as you would have been if you violate the decree of the court.
Once the order reaches to the court, it gives the stamp.
Yes. It doesn't give a stamp in the sense of a literal stamp, but in the sense of its approval. The order is dictated that it is incorporating that settlement agreement.
And how is it different from arbitration, mediation? Just
Mediation is less formal, more confidential. Confidentiality is also there in the arbitration. There's one statutory provision to that. But it is more formal in the sense an arbitrator is really like, if I may loosely call, a private judge.
okay.
So yes, parties are in charge in the sense that they can decide the rules of procedure. Principles of CPC and Evidence Act apply, but not necessarily the statutory provisions.
Okay.
So like in the court, you can have an application for anything and everything under the CPC. Here not so. In fact, I'm doing some arbitrations where I give the opportunity to the parties to say whether they want to rely only on documentary evidence or they want to lead oral evidence. So if the parties choose, like I've done one case where one party says I'll lead only oral evidence and the other party says I'll lead only documentary evidence. That doesn't happen in the court very much. If one party is leading oral evidence, the other party will also lead oral evidence.
Okay.
But here, yes, it is formal to that extent that you see there's a principle of good faith in arbitration. Good faith means that you will adopt those principles. Principles of evidence, principles of the CPC, but you're not necessarily dictated by the words of the CPC. That flexibility is there.
So you just said that arbitrator is like a judge,
Private
judge. So what are the qualifications of an arbitrator? Is there any kind of exam?
No exam. There's no exam you need to clear for the arbitration as far as we are talking about the Indian landscape of law. But what you need to do is have certain experience. In fact, there was, after the amendment, there was, I think, 43J read with the 8th schedule, if I'm not mistaken, that listed advocates, retired judges, members of the Indian legal system, chartered accountants, cost accountants, those kind of people who are supposed to be educated to some level, who have been professionals for some years. They can know what are the principles of natural justice, etc. They have a certain knowledge of the working of the systems. So those can be appointed by the as arbitrators by the appointing authorities. Otherwise, the parties are also free to appoint their own arbitrators, but after Perkins, you know, there's a limit to that. You can't go on and on.
Okay.
Yeah, after the judgment in Perkins, I'm talking.
Okay. What judgment in Perkins?
Perkins, you know, what used to happen earlier was that supposing there's one corporate, or forget corporate, there's railways. Let's take, for example, I am a panel lawyer also for the union. So what would happen? They would appoint 3-4 people, or CPWD. They would appoint their executive engineers. 5-6 ka panel bana liya. And they would say, these are our arbitrators, like it or not. So if Gaurang was having a dispute with the railways, like it or not, the railways officer would be the arbitrator. If Gaurang is having a dispute with CPWD, like it or not, their men would be the arbitrators. But now Supreme Court in that Perkins judgment has said you can't do that. You need somebody who's neutral. So now more and more people are taking recourse to Section 11 of the Arbitration Act, going to the High Court for appointment of arbitrators, and then the High Court more or less appoints.
And दोनों parties की consent भी होनी चाहिए कि ये arbitrator है.
क्योंकि क्या हुआ है, जैसे मेरे साथ भी हुआ है, that some parties say they've given my name in the notice under Section 21.
Okay.
This is that we giving notice to the other side that we want to resort to arbitration and we would like so and so to be our arbitrator. But just because you're in a dispute, they may not know me. I've given my declaration, I don't know either party. They may say, ये उसने बोला है तो हम नहीं agree करेंगे. They may not know me, they may not have anything, any complaint against me. Because they may say हमें कोई problem नहीं है, but हम हाँ नहीं बोलेंगे. Simply because they feel it, उसने बोला है तो हम बोल देंगे तो वो उसके फेवर में कर देगा. ऐसा होता नहीं है, but that's the thinking of many people.
Okay. तो मतलब ये जरूरी नहीं है कि आर्बिट्रेटर को लीगल फील्ड का होना जरूरी नहीं है. ये आउटसाइड लीगल
जरूरी
फील्ड
नहीं है, but if you ask for my personal opinion, I feel it is better. Because I have had experience as a counsel in arbitration that when you talk of principles of CPC, when you talk of principles under the Evidence Act, a person who may be in service, let's say for 40 years, may still not know anything about it, which a lawyer would in his sleep know. कि ये admitted है, ये denied है, मतलब you don't need to explain much to them.
Yes.
They know it and we can get beyond that. But a person who's not from the field, I mean, why do you not go to a chartered accountant for your tooth extraction? You don't. Because you feel a dentist is better qualified. Similarly, you don't go to a dentist for filing your ITRs. Why? Because you feel that
I would prefer going to a person who has the knowledge of that area.
Right. Similarly for arbitrations, because you have to sometimes go through evidence principles. Even principles of CPC, these are norms that have been laid down of law, which people from the other professions may not be aware of. Simply because they're good professionals and have done well in that sphere doesn't make them a good arbitrator.
Okay. So, ma'am, what type of cases are referred to arbitration?
You see, the main thing about arbitration is a matter that has an arbitration agreement.
Okay.
That agreement is more likely to be written, that is given of the statute, that you have to have an agreement in writing. So, most of your cases would be contractual.
Okay.
Where you incorporate the arbitration agreement as part of your contract. There are some cases now which have been decided by the Supreme Court. In Vidya Dhrolia's case.
Vidya Dhrolia's case?
Yes, it was a three-judge bench judgment. I think it was penned by Justice Sanjeev Khanna.
Okay.
Now they gave the thing that these are certain cases which can go for arbitration, these are some cases which cannot go for arbitration, and basically those cases can go for arbitration which are disputes in rem, not in rem but in personam. Meaning in rem is against the whole world.
Okay.
For instance, your criminal cases, it is against the state. If you murder someone, it's not just against the victim, it's against the state because the state wants law and order. So, such a case cannot go for arbitration. Similarly, with your landlord-tenant disputes, you may in some cases have a contractual obligation for an arbitration. But if that is not there, then it doesn't. If it is covered under the Rent Protection Acts of various
Rent
states,
Control Act,
maybe, of any state, then it will not go to arbitration.
Okay.
But if there is a special contract with an arbitration agreement, then it may.
Okay.
Similarly, marriage disputes. Mostly matrimonial matters don't go to arbitration, they can go for mediation. But if you have a prenup contract or some contract, or there's a talk of damages of some sort in a written instrument, through a written instrument, and there is an arbitration agreement in that, then only those where there is that arbitration agreement will go to arbitration.
But prenups are not legal in India, no?
Who said that? They are not made here, yes, but there's no law disallowing them.
Okay.
There's no law disallowing them, to my mind.
Ma'am, arbitration in India versus other countries, what do you think? Is it more prevalent in other countries? And in India, do people repose their trust on arbitration?
There are 3 or 4 questions in that one question. So I'll take it one by one. Firstly, where does India stand? India is growing very speedily. Mostly when people look to the West for arbitration, they would look at London, New York. And when they would look at East, they would look at Hong Kong, Singapore. But now people have also started looking at India. That's one thing. Second thing, if you talk about arbitrations being successful for Indians by Indians, yes, because if you go to London, New York, Singapore, anywhere, in Singapore, in fact, maximum business of arbitration is given by Indians. Indians also choose their seat of arbitration. You know, there's a seat of arbitration to be Singapore. So now the government is working with this Make in India thing to bring that business to, because this is also a business. This is an industry in itself. And it is a growing industry. So there is, the government has been taking initiatives. I don't know, today the results are going to be out, whether the policy would continue or not, I don't know. But so far it has continued. Even in the previous regime, there were impetus given to arbitrations. And as far as courts go, it was a lot of hodgepodge going on. One court would say one thing, the other court would say something different. But all the dust settled down after Renu Sagar's judgment from the Supreme Court, which was very pro-enforcement of the award. Because we are talking global, I'm talking enforcement of the foreign award. It took a very pro-enforcement stance. And at the end of the day, whether it's a foreign businessman or whether it's a domestic businessman, they want to know whether they can get their award enforced or not. So once that happens and the judiciary starts talking in one voice that they are pro-enforcement, not all awards, if they prick the conscience of the court or you know, they breach the public policy and they stare you in the face that they are beyond the terms of the contract, etc., then they can be put away. But if they have followed the rules, then pro-enforcement. So that is how it is. So the judiciary is doing its bit, the government is doing its bit, and I must tell you, we have a huge pool of talented people. Initially, arbitration was like a part-time job. सुबह कोर्ट गए, शाम को arbitration करें, ऐसे होता था. Today it's become more professional. Now people are trying to be full-time arbitrators because it is paying off.
I think the courts are also showing that India is an arbitration-friendly country because government also want MNCs to enter India and expand their businesses in India because it would boost the economy.
I'm not sure that the courts want that. Courts want, yes, a regime which is more on the same page. So the act in itself has been amended. The act initially, if you look at the Arbitration Act history, the first act came in 1899.
1899?
Yes. And then we had something in the 30s on the Geneva enforcement. Geneva Convention enforcement was very tricky because once you had an award, let's say there's a businessman in Dubai and a businessman in London, they have a dispute, they go for arbitration, and the Dubai businessman has some property in Mumbai, right? That has to be attached. So first they will go for arbitration, then they'll go to the respective countries to seek a declaration that yes, this is followed the rules, this is fine. Then they'll come to Mumbai to enforce that award. So it was a huge process. Then the New York Convention came, which simplified the process, saying that what we call the unique trial model, that you don't need to have it declared in your independent jurisdictions. Once the award has been made, now under the unique trial model, supposing that same dispute, Dubai and London, property in Mumbai, you get the award, you come straight to Mumbai court and ask for enforcement. So it has simplified to that extent.
Okay.
So incorporating that, in 37 it wasn't working out very well. So then in 1940 they amended the Arbitration Act for the domestic also.
Okay.
Then in 61 you had something for the New York. Then in 96 you have the latest amendment, not the latest amendment, I would say the latest act, Arbitration Act of 96, which incorporates domestic, the New York model as well as the Geneva model.
Okay.
And that has been amended many times over, 15, 19, 21. You've had a range of amendments which goes to show that the government is interested that these arbitrations work and they can call for businesses here.
Would you like to share some of your experiences as an arbitrator?
I will not like to go very deep in that because we have something called confidentiality in arbitrations also, but yes, it has been a field where I quite enjoy myself. I used to think I enjoy myself most in the court, but I'm also enjoying myself in arbitrations as an arbitrator. So I'm getting that joy and I learn every day. And I think that's important. As long as you continue to learn, that's important. But as far as my experiences go, I don't think I would like to announce them on a public forum.
Okay. I appreciate that and I respect that. I would like to ask that you said that arbitrations take less time if we compare it to court proceedings. So on an average, how long does a court proceedings go if we compare it to an arbitration?
See, the last amendment in 2019 brought in something called Section 29A.
Okay.
Now, 29A gives a timeline that you complete your arbitration. The award has to come within 1 year, 12 months since the pleadings have been completed. Right? Now we have one judgment of the Supreme Court in Tata Sons case, which says that this 29A applies only to the domestic. It precludes the foreign. So this time limit of 12 months is a great thing for even domestic arbitrations, because you can't have that kind of a deadline in your court cases. आपकी 3 तारीख लगती है तो साल निकल जाता है. ऐसे नहीं होता. मेरे को भी कई पार्टीज बोलती है इतना टाइम दे दो, उतना टाइम दे दो. ऐसे नहीं, ये कोर्ट नहीं है कि इतना टाइम मिल जाएगा आपको. In mediation I give even less time. In arbitration I'm a little lax because they do need some time for evidence, etc. But I'm not that lax, and I am very strict in that sense that on day one itself I say that costs will be imposed to anyone who seeks an adjournment, whatever be the cause. So I make it very clear on day one that if you're going in for arbitration and you want the award in 1 year, you mean business. Then you have to comply, na? You can't get lax on that.
Yes.
Yes.
So ma'am, as an arbitrator, you are an arbitrator, I want to ask, what do you think about the future of arbitration in India?
Oh, I believe in 2 growth stories. One is the India growth story. I believe in it. I cut out all the noise which is political, but actually on the ground India is going to grow. Business is growing, will grow. That's number 1. Number 2, legal industry is also growing, will grow. Within that, arbitrations will grow manifold.
Okay.
Because if business is growing, disputes will also grow. And if disputes will grow, you will want a cost and time efficient way of resolving them. So you have to resort to arbitrations. So I believe arbitrations future is secure in India.
Okay. And do you think that more cases will enter the ambit of arbitration? Like right now, matrimonial disputes are not referred to arbitration, or criminal disputes also, because they are in REM. They are against the world.
Matrimonial matters are not in REM. Number one.
Okay.
There are some matters like you want a declaration against someone, that would be in REM. But apart from in REM, see, criminal matters cannot be resolved even in mediation.
Okay.
We can resolve many things, but we can't resolve non-compoundable criminal matters in mediation. Similarly, as I said, for an arbitration, you need contractual disputes. You need a contract, you need an arbitration agreement within that contract. So the flavor would be contractual.
Okay.
Plus minus here and there. And let's not just go to criminal, because I believe that's a process that needs to take place and it has worked well. Of course, the criminal system is crumbling because of the numbers, but otherwise it's a separate system. It can't be mixed up with arbitration.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this insightful conversation. And I got to learn a lot from this, and I hope the viewers also get to learn a lot. And thank you for giving us your time, ma'am. Thank you very much.